Hi, Marvina. It's so nice to meet you. Thank
Hi,
you for
Liz.
coming
Thank you for,
on.
excuse me, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
Of
Do you like
course,
to
of
be called
course.
Liz or Elizabeth?
Elizabeth is great.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah,
Elizabeth, my apologies.
no, not at all. Um, so I personally have always said that my favorite sound in the world is the sound of a champagne cork popping. I think it's the best sound ever, and I love bubbly. I'm always the first one to pull it out when it
Hmm.
comes, time to party. And I know that you were dubbed the champagne chick by your friends back in the day.
Yes, yes.
So I feel like you and I already have a lot in common. We have similar interests when it comes to what we like to drink.
Hmm.
What is it that you love so much about bubbly and champagne, and why did you decide to make your business out of it?
Well, what I like really about it, like you just said, is this, it's the whole thing of opening the cork, pouring it slightly tilty, seeing the glass fill with bubbles. It has like a little nostalgia to it, right? It feels like it makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Some people like to think that champagne is only for celebratory reasons. I like to think that champagne can be for anything. I would love to have it more in the positive and happy times, but sometimes when you're down, that cork, popping might just instantly bring a smile to your face, or as you pour the bubbles, it'll help you feel better. So I believe, it always makes me feel better in all moods. Why I decided to open up, actually launch a private label for my personal brand is because one, I wanted something, that hit me that I actually liked, right? I'm in the process of opening up a champagne bar, and I wanted to have a private label, champagne, because one, I love champagne. That's why there's a champagne bar opening up. And two, why not have something that is unique to an establishment? Because and that's where Stuyvesant came from. I'm sure, as you know, Stuyvesant is named after the neighborhood I grew up in, and I wanted
Yes.
to, like, yeah, Bedford Stuyvesant, grew up in Hancock and Stuyvesant. So Stuyvesant was a very fitting name for this bubbly.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that goes into one of my other questions for you, which is like, I know that you're setting your new bar, and actually, your new bar is called Coupette NYC. Is that
Yes,
correct? Yeah,
yes,
Coupette NYC. And that's going to be opening later this year in Bed-Stuy. Is that still on track to open, given
um,
everything that's going on?
yeah, I'm hoping to keep it on track. It depends when all this coronavirus is seized down and things go back to semi-normal operations. If not, I am prepared, mentally to say, okay, this might have to be pushed back, maybe to late winter or winter 2021. Not my goal, but I have to do everything in God's timing. So if it's meant to be this year, then it'll be. If it rolls over to 2021, then that's when it will be, as long as it opens, and it opens up correctly. I'm not going to push anything that I don't feel the timing is right. When I originally started the champagne label, it really wasn't to hit shelves, or it was only really otherly meant for the bar. So that's like what people don't realize, is that this was merely meant for the bar. So it kind of expanded out in its own way that really wasn't on my ideal plan. So for me, as it began to evolve, I'm like, okay, so this is something I have to readjust on my marketing side, and realizing that there's a market here and then there's a market here, and I need to adjust. So with that, now that it's moving along faster, okay, I want to be able to promote the brand, move it out of New York, different regions, so that I have time for that. So once the bar opens, as everybody knows, once you open up a new business, especially a stable location, you have to be there. You have to be very hands-on. There's no days off. So I feel like if I open the bar up too early, I kind of take away from developing the actual brand. And nobody's really knows it like you do, right? Nobody knows the back end story. Nobody knows the ins and outs. Though I am like grooming two people to kind of take some things off my plate. At the end of the day, nobody's really all up in here.
Right.
There's no protocol. I try to write things down, but utterly there's no book to say, okay, this is what you have to do here. Like sometimes they might understand what we need to do, but at the end of the day, it's still going to come back to me. So I'm just developing everything naturally. So in my mind, yes, we're going to be opening up into this year. If it rolls over, I'm open to that as well, as long as we're able to develop the brand as well.
hmm Well, you know that as soon as you open, we'll be there to celebrate with you and drink some bubbly
Yeah,
as soon as we
yeah.
can. Rosé Mansion, our whole, philosophy is celebrate everything. So I really loved what you were saying earlier about being able to drink champagne in times of celebration and also drink it when you're not feeling so good to lift yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what we're all looking for right now, is a reason to feel like, even though we might feel like we don't have a lot to celebrate, we still can give ourselves that little bit of like, all right, pop the cork and
Yeah,
pour it and
I
just,
totally agree. I
yeah.
totally agree.
So I know that you are super accomplished in, your previous pre-entrepreneurship life. Like, you have degrees in biology and statistics, and
Yes.
you were in finance for a long time. So that's
Yes.
like a very impressive background.
Thank you.
I like, can you tell me a little bit about how you transitioned from that world into the world of entrepreneurship?
I'm still transitioning. I am, it's kind of hard because sometimes I battle myself because I had the consistent income, which is the hardest thing to kind of leave and walk away from.
Sure.
Um, as I began towards like I would say the last 4 or 5 years of my career, I began to question myself, like, is this what I want? Is this where I want to be? In my younger career, I was hungry. I was overly dedicated. I was, I worked in a trading desk. I was on my desk at 7 a.m. I was the last one to leave. Like, I was like a lean, mean machine. Now, as I got a little bit older and you begin to see things as you develop, and I got the entrepreneur bug. So many people, when I was younger, would talk about entrepreneurship, and I'd be like, nope, not my thing. I didn't go to school for that. I go to school for this, and this is what I want to do, da 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 da. And I started like getting interested in it. And, I've owned pre-existing business where I've owned a indoor spinning studio, which was great. First time opened up a brick and mortar location. Probably not the best fit for me long term, because I had to make the decision in what I wanted to do. I actually ended up opening up a cafe with it. I ended up selling the spin studio because the goal was to serve bubbles in the cafe. But unfortunately, the landlord wasn't with it. So I decided after a couple of years, I'm like, do I hold on to something, which I think a lot of people do. And I used to do it too. Do I hold on to something to try to make it work until, and then I'll try to make everything work? Or do you just let it go, right? Sometimes you got to take a step back, and we think it's a step back, but it's not a step back. It's really just taking a step to the left, fixing it up, and then you're taking a step to your right. So that is like one of the things I had to do in battling with the transition. Sometimes I get nervous because I like to be financially stable. And with the business, sometimes starting a new business, it's a lot of expenses that go into it. You don't get the rewards right away. You have to take losses, you have to learn. And sometimes the decisions you make is not the best decision the first time. So therefore, let's just say I ordered a product, or I'll give you an example. Like when we first started playing with the labels, I thought I did it right. I was wrong. And then I had to eat the cost, and it's coming out of my pocket. So it's not going up to a CEO, somebody else. It's really coming to me. So for me, I'm still going through the transition. It's tough, but at the end of the day, I actually like it because this is my business. This is my brand. And I'm grooming it to the level of where I utterly want to be. Like, I have my long-term goals. I have my short-term goals. And honestly, I'm on track for short-term. So that's one of the things that I'm very proud of. So still transitioning, still learning process, probably will always be, but I'm becoming more comfortable with the fact and saying, like, this is where I am right now.
Yeah, and I love what you were saying about being willing to let something that's not working go, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really hard concept. A lot of us think, "Oh my gosh, I've spent all this time and effort and money or whatever it is on something, and if it's not working, you want to still hold on to it." But I think the best way to grow, and I think that's a really cool lesson to learn right now when everything is up in the air for so many people,
Exactly.
how do we move forward in a way that makes sense and,
Mm-hmm.
is the best situation for ourselves. So I think that's a really inspiring lesson to take from what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of actually deciding which champagne and which wine you were going to use for your label, because I know the reason you started is that you weren't finding something that you really liked that was already on the market. And
Wait. Let me
oh,
clarify that. That's not
oh,
true.
sure, please.
So that's not true. I saw that printed somewhere else, but that's not the reason. Is like, there are lots of champagnes that I love. Though I own a champagne brand, I still sip other people's brand because I just love it. I feel like when, just don't be open to close minded to only say this is only what I drink. I
Hmm.
did mine. I wanted to do something, bring a brand to the market that I wanted personally for my business and just for something that I know I love. I'm like, if this is something I'm passionate about, why not have something of my own? So that's really where it came from. I think there are amazing brands out there. I'm not knocking anybody's brand because I think there's something unique in everybody's brand. If you speak to everybody, there's a story behind everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Um, so what was it like to go to France? I mean, going to France and hanging out in vineyards and tasting champagne
Mhm.
sounds like a dream
Right.
come true. It sounds like something out of a movie, but I'm sure there was a lot of work
Mhm.
and knowledge that had to go into it. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, so it's not, it sounds fun. Like that's the sound, it sounds fun, right? But you don't get the access like that. You just can't say, hey, I want to come in a vineyard and I want to talk about a private label, because people are going to tell you no. And I've heard no numerous times. So I had a friend, and I won't say a friend, I had an acquaintance I met in France. And we were talking after hanging out a night in France, like 5 o'clock in the morning. We were talking like, what do you ultimately want to do? And I said, I want to, have a private label champagne for my business. And he's like, well, this is the right place to be. I can make some connections for you. And though it didn't happen instantly, it began to happen slowly. So people that I reached out to independently told me no, right? And then this person made another introduction, told me yes. So I said, okay. So now I started making the connections. I planned another trip, try to do like 4 or 5 places in one trip, because I would always stay in Paris, but you have to go out in the Champagne region, which is like a 50-minute train ride, considered like Amtrak, to get to that region. And it's like a town, not a big town. And you go, you get samples, you taste it, you talk about, like I talk about what I want and what I don't want. And my friends will tell you I am long-winded and I ask a lot of questions. Even before you finish answering my question, I got another question. So I would come and I would have this paper out to go through my checklist. As soon as I pull the paper out, people look at me like, here we go. And I'd be like, okay, what about this? And I'll just check off, okay, this, and this. So it's come down to, how you choose the vineyard that wants to work with you, a partnership, and then are you okay with it? And for me, it's just like being in a relationship. You have to have that vibe. It has to have the product you're interested in, what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do for you. And then utterly, like, can I work with this person or this brand for X amount of time? Are they going to be able to be a little flexible with me to, have like my visions that I have? Because sometimes I'm all the way out here and love to work with somebody that's going to say, okay, let's make this happen. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. And I found a vineyard that was perfectly what I wanted to do. Um, the samples that we received were excellent. Had a selection that I wanted to work with. I said, okay, this is it. And just the communication was cool. It's a like a family owned, which I really respected. Small, so it's not like a mainstream. I didn't want to do anything mainstream. I wanted to work with people that actually are in the weeds on a daily basis, not in the weeds literally, but down the consistencies all the way down, knowing that it's family owned, small growers, and that they're producing with top notch, champagne is exactly what I wanted. So that's really how I kind of chose the vineyard I wanted to do a partnership. We chose each other, I would say.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect partnership where
Mhm.
you both are coming together with this common goal. And um, in terms of, your champagne, this is champagne from the Champagne region of
Yes.
France. So it's not, any other kind of sparkling wine. It is champagne.
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about like the taste profiles of the two
Hmm.
um, varieties that you have in your label?
So we have a rosé. I actually have a sample here. So this is like our rosé bottle here. And then we also
Beautiful.
have the Grand Reserve Brut, which is actually right here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but
Yeah.
these are our two main cuvées, right? So people always ask, do you have a favorite? And I've said this numerous times, I do, right? I like the Grand Reserve Brut because it's just something that resonates to me. Even if it wasn't my brand, I'm more of a Brut person. So there are, hints of apple crisp. You can actually smell the cork. It smells delightful. When you actually pour it, sometimes when you pour, you take a sip of champagne. Different champagnes are out there, different palates. Everybody's palate is unique. So what I like, you may like not like, and vice versa.
Right.
You
We
get
always
that
say good
little,
wine is whatever you like to drink. So yeah.
exactly right, exactly. That's a good quote. You get that sting sometime, or when it just goes down right and smooth. That's what gets it for me. It's very floral. You taste every note in it, and it's like you taste the bubbles as you can swirl it around in your mouth, and that's what I like. And also the bubbles don't disappear. Sometimes you can tell the freshness of the champagne by the bubbles, right? So you pour a glass, as long as it's not flat. I don't know who has a bottles of champagne left over, because if not, they need to invite me over and finish
Never
it.
happened to me. Yeah.
Like, don't leave it around me because I'll finish it. You get bubbles in every pour. So that's what I like and what works for me. And the feedback that we receive from different customers. Sometimes we did tastings, blind tasting, what they like. And that was a lot of the feedback. The rosé, very aromatic, you taste it, it's just very floral, something that I like. People who are strictly rosé lovers, they've like commended it, say like, this is a great rosé for me. It's perfectly balanced, just, you actually literally can smell it. So if we were together, I would be like, here, smell it. So you can
Right.
actually see it.
If only. Do both of them sort of fall in the middle of the spectrum in terms of dry or sweet? Or I know a brut tends to be on the drier side, which I
Yeah,
like.
so yes, the brut is dry. It's not overly dry. The rosé is not. It's like a brut, but it's not like overly sweet. It's not like like a like a sweet champagne or anything. But it does have the floor, because you do have the Meunier wine on top of the grapes for the champagne. So it has a little bit more sweetness to it, but it's not overly sweet.
So exciting. I can't wait to try both of them and support you.
Thank you.
So you are one of like the very few women of color in the wine industry. Has that been more of a challenge for you, or do you think it's been an asset in some ways?
Um, I think it's interesting for that comment, right? Because we all say like, you don't know who's who out there. I don't think uh, minorities, Black men and women, are highly dominated in this field, right?
Mhm.
I do say, oh, I will also say, as women, I think we're a double minority. We're Black and we're a woman, so we're double minority. Do I think we're highly dominated in the field? Answer is no. For Champagne, answer is no. Has it come play for or against me? I would say it plays on both sides, because it's something you're breaking new into, and you have to find a way to make it your own, make your way. You have to say, you know what, I'm in this industry to stay, and I'm new to the industry, so I'm still learning along the way. Have I partnered with certain people in the industry? Some yes, some no. I'm still learning. There's a couple of people I would love to. In this downtime where we're quarantined, I've been making more contacts, as far as like, let me reach out to these people, introducing myself virtually. Other companies that I think that would be a good fit for the brand, I've been doing that now. So it's a good and the bad. Good is, okay, something new, people are like, okay, yes, this is something breakthrough. A lot of people supporting you, rooting for you, which gives you the drive to say, okay, I can't feel strangers that I don't even know. Your friends and family are always going to support you. They count, but they really don't count. It's the
Sure.
strangers that I don't know, where I receive like, just emails, hey, saw you in the article, I'm rooting for you, sis, or hey, love your article, go, pro women. And it's just not Black women either. It's like all different nationalities, like rooting for you. Hey, like like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I live in Bedford Stuyvesant. I was walking up McDonald Street, not too far from where I live at, and there was a European couple sitting outside. They were cleaning in front of their gate. And when I walk with my headphones, but I'm like jamming in my headphones. And he's like, Stuyvesant Champagne. I'm looking like, hey, he's like, I saw you, we're rooting for you. Like, yes, like this is our neighborhood, but it's just like they're rooting for you. So, people are rooting for you. So it's like, I can't let that root go down. So, I'm a hard worker by nature. So I'm going to figure it out. If I fall on my face a couple of times, I have no problem getting myself up and going. If I, have a wall blocker, take a step back, figure it out, and then keep it moving. So that's really how I operate in all industries.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I think, the more diversity that we have in all aspects of business and the better we all are. And it's so great to see that, you're getting some people rallying behind you and supporting you, because I think it's really exciting to see new voices coming out, especially when it's historically for such a long time not been the case.
But I will say it's not easy. I will say, like, specifically working with different people in France, it's not easy. Like I just hung up with a call, and I'm just getting told so many negative things. It's just like, okay, I'll figure this out later. but it's part of the process. So you'll get your glory maybe, 2 years down the road. I get my little glories every other week when I say, okay, got this done on my checklist. Whew, that only took you 2 weeks. So that's how I take small victories.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you were a little surprised by and like maybe even a little unprepared for how quickly things took off with the champagne brand because,
Yes.
it would initially started off just as a brand for your bar, which hadn't opened yet. So, I mean, that's a good problem to have, but it's still a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
How are you navigating the demand? How are you changing your plans in order to fulfill the orders?
Yeah, so totally wasn't in the plan. I knew I was going to put it on shelves because people kept asking me for it. So I'm like, you know what? Why not? I already started all this paperwork. We'll do it. And it's like, okay, this wasn't in a plan. So it's like, okay, supply got to be increased. Working with the vineyard and getting it here. Working with a distributor. I personally partnered with a distributor called CM Imports, in which she's also Black woman, minority owned distributor, also breaking into the industry. So I'm working closely with her. So wherever she's distributing that is where I go at. So that's one thing I try to do. Two is like, this time that we're in our downtime right now, I try to be very proactive at home, take this time, revise the marketing plan, revise some time frames. Now that people are interested in different markets, how can I get in those markets? What do I need to do? How do I make this time to come out? I don't want to come when the quarantine lifts and we're able to semi go back to normal. I don't want to be in the same place I was before. I want to make sure I've made steps and made my time useful. So have I increased production? I have increased production. Have I said, okay, this is what we're going to allocate for these are the certain, I have regions that I'm really focusing on to get the product to. Things that I want to do by the end of the year. This is now April. Yes, April. Sometimes I forget what day it is. It's April. It's April. And it's like, okay, as far as I'm concerned, I'm planning for year end. Like I'm planning for the biggest season where New Year's Eve, let's get these boxes going. Let's get, this production needs to be done by this time. We need to have extra end of the year inventory here by like September, so that, I'm not going to be doing any last minute deliveries because my shipment comes directly from France and, it's coordinated and we're a small brand. So we don't have the production as some of the larger ones, though we will get there one day. But right now, this is how we're rolling out. So I want to make sure I can, take care of all supply and demand and make sure we don't have any hiccups. So right now for me, I'm planning for year end. I'm planning for, custom boxes. I'm planning to see, parties and stuff like that, because I do want to make sure Stuyvesant is out there and buzzing for New Year's. We're planning this big thing, like, let's see your Stuyvesant for New Year's Eve. So that's what, little marketing plan, still figuring it out, but that's what we want to do for New Year's Eve.
Oh, that sounds so great. I can't wait to celebrate and be able to be all together.
Right, and like touch you like, hey, Elizabeth, how are you?
Exactly. Put that glass in my hand.
Yeah, I'll put it, I'll pour it.
So, your brand is named Stuyvesant. You're in Bed-Stuy. Why was it so important for you to honor your home neighborhood and, bring that into your brand?
Because it's me, I went to school in Virginia, always come back home to Bedford-Stuyvesant, right? When I first moved out my mother's house, she had way too many rules. When I moved out my mother's house, I still lived in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I went to graduate school at Columbia and I was living uptown for about a week. And I realized, this rent is too high for me to be a full-time student. Where'd I come back to? Bedford-Stuyvesant. And I have so many memories walking up Stuyvesant Avenue. When I was in the third grade, I had the school bus that picked me up on Stuyvesant and Decatur. I was always late, be running for the bus. Even though I was in high school up the block, I'm still running because I'm just late. I just have so many good memories from like my childhood friendships that developed, major accomplishments, from graduating from junior high school to high school. It just felt like this was where it should be, like our neighborhood, Bedford-Stuyvesant has changed, right? It has been gentrified, which is great. Some people like it, some people don't. But I feel like, okay, if I'm going to open up a business, I'm going to do it in my neighborhood where I grew up at, where my roots are planted from, where my grandparents actually, grew up in the same neighborhood. So this is where I want to be because I have a story to tell. We can go all the way back. We can talk about where nobody wanted to walk up Stuyvesant or be on Lewis Avenue or be in the neighborhood at times. Sometimes I didn't want to be in the neighborhood. So
wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
Exactly. But I also remember, like, when I was in high school, like, you really didn't want to walk up some of these blocks. So now I feel like it's the proper time. You know, I don't want to go to another neighborhood where there's a great product and put it in another neighborhood where I want to put it in my neighborhood. And this is, you know, I'm very adamant on it. Like, I've been looking for different commercial spaces. I mean, I found other properties outside of my neighborhood, which actually is exactly what I'm looking for. But I'm sticking to my original plan, where it has to be in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So that is like one thing I'm not changing. I'm not changing that. I'm not changing the name. Like, this is it. We all go together.
Yeah, that's great. I love that story of, you know, the hometown feel. I think people can really relate to that and wanting to connect to where you're from and where your family is from. I think it makes it even more exciting. So we're all feeling a little bummed out and, you know, sad right now because we're stuck at home and we're not able to see each other. But
Yeah.
you told me that you might have some exciting news to share with us.
Yeah, we have some exciting news that I haven't shared anywhere publicly. Only like about a handful of people know. So one of the things that we've been doing, as I mentioned in the interview, we want to branch out to different regions. So we have officially confirmed our distribution in California and also our distribution in Florida. So commercially, wholesale, we can now partner and distribute in those two states. And we are pending in Illinois, which should come through in probably about 2 to 3 weeks. And then we have some other states that we just recently applied to. Not we, but CM Imports just recently applied to. So they're rolling out nice and slowly. We're building up to like this big grand thing. Like, I have an order I'm asking her to go into. So those are the first two that we're focusing on. We're going to end on a really good note. So I'm really excited about that. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you. So we're, you know, when we got you know how you get the approval, the email, you were like, yes. So that's what it was. And we're going to begin to market heavily in a couple of weeks. Not right now. We're just, you know, building up the approvals to like kind of go mainstream at one big bulk time. So I'm actually
great.
sharing it with you publicly.
Wow, exclusive here on our Rosé Mention Happy Hour. That's such cool news. So if you're in California or in Florida, and maybe even my home state of Illinois in the near future, then you can get Stuyvesant champagne. So yay. We can't wait to get our hands on some bottles of this. So can you tell us how we can do it while we're not allowed to go out?
We do currently sell online via Vino Shipper. So if you go to our website, www.stuyvesantchampagne, and you go to the shop tab, Vino Shipper is our dedicated shipper, and also spirited wines, but they're all combined together on the website. So, and that's how you can get it for now. We are going to be rolling out our merchants here in New York and different states slowly but surely. So, you know, we just had to take a step back, take a step aside, get everything together, and plow along.
Yeah, I like how you talk about that. It almost seems like a little dance. Like you take
a step
back,
you gotta like do a little shuffle. Gotta add some music to this.
Yes, right.
And very animated.
When you roll out your New York merchants, can we find that information on your website as well?
Oh, you're not gonna have to find it on the website. I'm gonna be blasting it everywhere.
Okay, great. Well, make sure you also follow. Do you have social media?
Yes. So we have Stuyvesant Champagne, Stuyvesant Stuyvesant Champagne. We do a lot of our announcements there. So that's where we kind of always start off.
So that's on Instagram?
Yes, that's our Instagram. And it's the same thing for our Facebook and Twitter page as well.
Fantastic. So everybody go follow so you get all up to date on the info. And make sure you order a bottle of Stuyvesant champagne to toast, even in, you know, if there's nothing that feels like you can need to celebrate, you can still celebrate with a little bubbly.
If your eyes are open, you have something to celebrate.